I went with it and I went with it and I went with it until I couldn't anymore. It just felt strange. It didn't work. It wasn't the story I wanted to tell. And when I sort of reframed it in a way that these women make their own decisions and not always for the best. And some of the times they show very poor judgment, but they're going to find their own way out of it. And it wasn't just a series of reactions to their husbands. I feel like it worked much better.
Welcome to Book Reporter Talks To, where today's guest is Lauren Weisberger, and we're going to be talking about her new novel, Where the Grass is Green and the Girls Are Pretty, which is a Good Morning America buzz pick. You may recognize her name, as Lauren is the #1 best-selling author of The Devil Wears Prada, which I cannot believe came out 18 years ago. Like, seriously?
We're not acknowledging that.
We were all in like kindergarten, seriously.
Yeah.
And from her last book, When Life Gives You Little Lemons. Welcome, Lauren. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So let's start with you telling us a bit about Where the Grass is Green and the Girls Are Pretty. I want to hear about you telling us about it.
Sure, I would absolutely love to. I think at heart, this book is a book about sisters. That is really the fundamental sort of storyline, the basis of the relationship all the way through. The primary relationship is the sister relationship. And I've wanted to write a book about sisters, the kind of sisters who tell each other absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. They have that sort of brutal, unfiltered dialogue always at all times. And they find something happens in the book without giving too much away. It's like a scandal, sort of a secret, but something happens to one of them and it has a ripple effect for certainly their relationship. It's the first thing they can't talk about, but also both of their families, and it sort of spreads out from there. And I thought it would just be really kind of interesting to push the envelope and find the boundary of, is there something that can really get in the way of a relationship this strong and this long? And I think I found it.
I think you did too.
Yeah.
Was this book inspired at all about your relationship with your own sister?
It was. This book was absolutely inspired by my relationship with my own sister, Dana. She is almost 5 years younger than me, and we are super tight. And I would say that neither of us are similar to either character. You know, like there's a tendency to kind of assume that I'm the this one and she's the that one. Our personalities are actually not like either character and not like each other, but we do have that way of conversing that is just, I don't even know what the word is for it. It's brutal. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's brutal.
Just say right to your face. This is what you're doing.
Right to your face. There is no filter. There is not a moment's hesitation of how like this might be received or how it might make someone feel. You spend your whole life like considering about how your words make people feel, right? Like your whole life, every minute of every day is sort of like gauging the reactions of the people around you and making sure you're not stepping on any toes. And not with my sister. It's just not like that. And it is so freeing and wonderful and beautiful and brutal and horrible and amazing. And I wanted that to kind of come across on the page.
Does she give you feedback about your books very directly like that as well?
Not so much. She'll definitely say like, this wasn't one of your best ones, or like this part bored me, but she's not like a super book critic. She's you know, much more hostile when it comes to my life choices. Yeah.
Other things that you've done.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when I was thinking about Peyton, who's one of the women in your book, she's the morning show anchor. And all I could think about was, you know, she gets into the studio at the crack of dawn. They start making her over. Everybody's putting the clothes on her. And all I could think of was the pandemic, when all of a sudden, all these talk show hosts were home in the morning and they were putting on their own makeup and doing their own hair and sitting in like their basement, making it into like a sound stage and stuff like that. And every once in a while they do a pullback and you see what it was looking like. And I was like, this was what Peyton's life was like when it vanished. Like, this is what, like, you know, this is what she was going through.
Right. I know, it's true. I didn't even really think about that, but that's true. You know, like you said, one of the main characters is a really world-renowned morning news anchor, recognizable, you know, to everyone. And I'm just like in awe of these people who do this, specifically these women. I mean, I think it's incredible, incredible, and nothing I could ever do myself on any level. But it was so fun to sort of imagine a character, like what that must look like for them to have that pressure every single day of knowing that you're going into the studio and you're going to go live and be piped into tens of millions of homes, and then to have to, like, you know, breaking news in your ear that you have to synthesize and regurgitate in some sort of sensical, articulate way to tens of millions of people live. It's just incredible to me.
And then from there, you've got this image that you've got to keep up. So right after that, you go to Pilates class, you go to exercise class, and you go get hair done, this, that, the other thing, because your whole life is like this. But always hovering ahead, always hovering on top of you is the studio. It's the studio, it's the network, and they're really calling the shots. And when the rug gets pulled out from under her and she has to, like, you know, leave that, all of a sudden that protected world, it's like the car is taking you home, and then where's the car? Where's everything?
Right.
She becomes like her sister. She's all of a sudden, it's like, wait, I'm my sister, but more people recognize me.
Right. It's true. Like all of a sudden, this whole bubble that's been sort of like kept her very kind of safely and happily ensconced for years is just blown to pieces. And what that, when it literally happens overnight, what does that feel like?
It's just like rugs pulled under, and, you know, now you're everybody.
Right.
So they're so different. And I must think like what it must be like to watch your sister every morning on the morning news. Like, you know, and then you can sit there and critique, like, why'd you do that with your hair? Like, why did you do this? Or why were you talking about that? And I was just thinking what that must have been like for Skye. Like, she turns it on and she's like watching her sister, but now, okay, now you don't have that job, and now we're going to come hang out and you want to be with me? Like, now.
Right. Like, this sort of sounds amazing, and I sort of need this like a hole in the head.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of both.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're going to be with me, and we're going to do what together? And at the same time, Skye's got her life together in a lot of ways. She went to a really good school. And now she's a great mom, and she's trying to raise money for this organization. She's got all these things going on. But I really love the way she talks about the mothers contributing to the classroom. Like, what they can't send in a little baked good, what they can't do this and that. And I was just so humored, because I think that there's still this line between the mothers who work and the mothers who are at home. And they're like, can you not volunteer? Can you not put your act together of what's going on? And I found that part so interesting in the book, because she's got the sister with a high profile job, which probably never went to the classroom with a cupcake ever, like never did this.
Right.
And this is so much of her life. And it's like, of course, this year, all the kids were home. You didn't have to bring a baked good any place. Everybody was just sitting in your living room. You didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And I was just thinking about what it must be, because she's got this very different life, but by the same token, she's really together in her life about what she's doing. And did you love developing the character that was like that?
I did, but I might disagree with you in sort of thinking that Skye has it all together. I sort of feel like it's falling apart for her too.
Okay.
You know, you're right. Like, she has the more traditional background. She went to the good schools, and she had all of this experience in education and in these NGOs in Africa. And she had this like really fulfilling career. And she also had the privilege to be able to make a decision to stay home and help raise her daughter. But she's tortured by it. And I think that like, I really kind of liked that juxtaposition of these two sisters, one who's just at the pinnacle of her career, and she's sacrificed a lot, certainly her relationship with her daughter, to get there. But she's there, she's got it. She's got like the A++ career. And you've got the other sister who has taken a step back, and who does, of course, love having the opportunity to stay home and raise her daughter, but also feels like she's not, like she's cheating herself, like she's unfulfilled intellectually, and she has sort of given up on her career dreams and her goals. And I just think it like kind of speaks to the bigger picture, which is that like this whole concept of balance, like, you know, rather than sort of saying like it's the moms who work or the moms who don't, like, it almost doesn't matter. The moms are not happy with what they're doing, regardless of what it is. Like, I think that, you know, it's a little bit, the grass is always greener, and you sort of feel like when you're balancing all of it, like you're not really doing a great job with any of it. At least I feel that way. I certainly feel that way. I feel like I'm sort of always kind of not giving 100% to work. And I have these 2 young kids at home and I'm not giving 100% to them. But you kind of cobble it together in the best way that you can. And you hope that people understand that there's not some like magical unicorn out there where everyone has it all, or they have a formula, they have it figured out. These 2 sisters definitely don't on purpose, because I don't think anyone does. But I don't know. That was definitely something I wanted to kind of explore in the book. You hit on it.
And I was thinking she was like happier. And isn't that funny? So I was like, well, even though she wasn't doing everything that she wanted, I felt like she was in a better place. Maybe I just felt she was in a better place. She was in more control of her life,
I hear that. Yeah.
And then we've got Max, who's this very cool kid, even though her mother wants to shape her into something else. Her mother wants to be something else. She wants to move her in all these different directions. How much fun was Max to write? Because I felt like she's just a super cool kid who's going to be great in life if only everybody would leave her alone.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. She was super fun to write because I have never written from the perspective of a teenager before, ever. So that was a first for me. And I'm obviously eons from being a teenage girl myself. So, some of it was kind of trying to remember what it's like that senior year, before college, like all of the emotions tied up in that. But the other part was just like creating this incredibly confident, body confident. Max is different. Like she doesn't consider herself like a mainstream kid. And she's been parked in a very, very mainstream, very privileged school and given every advantage in life. And like you said, all she wants is everyone to just like back the F off and let her do her. And that is exactly what her parents are not doing. So it was fun. I think everyone's kind of had that point in their lives, maybe not senior year in high school, or maybe it was like the last year, but where you just want to leave it behind, like leave it in your rearview mirror and look forward. And Max is trying really hard to do that. And her parents are trying really hard to thwart her.
Yeah. And it's like to send her in all these different directions. And it's really interesting because junior and senior, I've been through junior and senior year of having kids in high school.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun because you watch parents take on totally different personas because now they're going to those schools like we got into. Like
right.
And I'm like, and my favorite line about that is everybody's really excited. I want to say, talk to me sophomore year, because the number of kids who moved from freshman to sophomore year in college is very dramatic. I mean, I remember we were up looking with my son, we were up at Syracuse. And my one question was, what percentage of the class does not come back? And it was 25%.
What?
Yes. And I said, what was the reason? Hold on for this one. It's cold. And I was like, so I used to say to people, go to the school in the worst month of the year. We were up there in February and they closed for the first time in like 20 years because of snow. And I said, if your kid doesn't want to wear boots and doesn't like freezing, then you don't send them there. So that was my advice on going to school.
Seems like good advice to me. Yeah.
But the number of people who are so super excited about where they are freshman year and then where they end up sophomore year is just always very interesting.
Because I did not know that. I really did not. That is news to me. That's so interesting.
But you think about like, okay, then the kid gets there and they either don't want to be that far away from home, or it's not really what they thought it was going to be, or the program's not really what they thought it was going to be. There's so many different things that happen. So I'm always like, yeah, just figure it all out. Don't see me sophomore year. Let me know what happens.
That's interesting.
let me know how that scholarship's still going when that GPA kept up. Let me know how that's going.
Yeah. How are those boots feeling in January?
January. Yeah. When you're still wearing them in April.
Also true. I know. I will never forget my freshman year of college, we got 6 inches of snow May 15th of my freshman year in Ithaca, New York. 6 inches. I was floored.
And so you know what I'm talking about the business.
But I also knew ahead of time it was going to be cold.
Yeah. Well, it's like people say, well, Florida might be too hot. I go in May, see if they like it.
Right.
It's not December we're talking about. Right. So do you sketch out the characters in advance? Like, do you have everything plotted or figured or?
Yes, I wouldn't say that like I have everything plotted out, but I certainly have the characters sketched out, and I do like a rough, I mean, somebody might call it an outline. I don't call it an outline, but I do like a rough chapter outline, for lack of a better word, where I just write a few sentences about what I'd like to see happen in
Mhm.
each chapter. So that's kind of about the end of it. I don't necessarily know where it's going to end. I know, the sort of arc that I'd like to see my characters take, but it's important to me that yes, there's a happy ending. I mean, I write the kind of books where
Mhm.
happy endings are a good thing. And I love reading books with happy endings, but I'd like my characters to, find their own way there and like an honest way.
And it completely works. In any of the books of yours that I've read, it's like everybody's traveling along, they're in the weeds, they get out of the weeds, it all ends up good. It ends up,
Totally.
and that's what you want to do.
I like that summary. Yes.
In the weeds, out of the weeds, and maybe back in
Yes.
the weeds for a little bit too.
Yes.
Sometimes they get
Yes.
caught back in the weeds, but they're still going to get themselves out there too. Writing is all about rewriting. And I've heard a couple of interviews where you talk about you actually rewrote this book, like you
I
had a
did.
totally
Yes. Yes.
different, like what was going on. And I always think this is so interesting because everybody seems to think that people sit down, they write, they hand it to the editor, it comes out. So how far along were you when you realized I need to switch this up?
Um, Pretty far along, in terms of like probably 60, 70,000 words, which is, depending on what sort of assessment you're using for how far along. Publishers like to see a first draft minimum of 80 to 90,000 words. So pretty far along. But it just kind of, I mean, probably like you had read, I just, it was really the first time it happened where I don't know why it took me so long to realize it, but all of everything that it was a very similar type of story I was telling, but because of the way it was constructed, all of the action was happening. All of my main character's action was really reaction. It was like reaction to the decisions that men in their lives had made, and they were reacting to it. And that just I went with it and I went with it and I went with it until I couldn't anymore. It just felt strange. It didn't work. It wasn't the story I wanted to tell. And when I sort of reframed it in a way that these women make their own decisions, and not always for the best. And some of the times they show very poor judgment, but they're going to find their own way out of it. And it wasn't just a series of reactions to their husbands. I feel like it worked much better.
Yeah. And it wasn't just like, okay, you're doing this, you did this to yourself. It's just
Right.
you dug your little hole and you've got to come out, and you're asking somebody to bail you out. Who's going to bail you out? You shouldn't be. But you
Right.
are, maybe. I don't know. I'm not giving
Right.
anything away. I'm not giving anything away.
Yeah.
So I also love the chapter titles in the book, especially Cartel Tequila. So did you write those as you were going, or do you go back and write all
No.
the chapter titles?
I go back after, and that's when I do that, like at the very end, like after there's sort of an accepted first draft, when I feel confident that like we're going to move forward. And then I go back and until then the chapters are totally nameless, and they shift around a lot. But at that point, that's when I have fun with it. That's when I feel like a big sense of relief. Like there's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot of rewriting. There's a lot going on still, but this will be like a few days of fun to kind of go back and read over, see what jumps out, and name the chapters.
Yeah, I had fun looking back at those. I really had a good time. And I was like, okay, there's definitely a lot of whimsy going in, and there's a lot of humor that's built into these, because you get to the beginning and you're like, wait, what is this going to be? And then you start reading, you're like, okay, that was witty. That was really
Oh, thank you.
That was very, very well done. I see some parallels between this book and your last one. In both, there's a problem. There's someone with a problem, and the women come together to have each other's backs. And I found that was very, very interesting, because you're really like, the women are empowering each other. Like as time goes on, they're going to like put this thing. Okay, we've got this problem. What are we going to do? I'm there for you. I'm there for you. And am I right in feeling that way about these
For
both of these
sure,
books?
for sure. And I think like in Lululemon's, it's definitely, it's a clear statement on women's friendships and how important they are. There's no question. I mean, I think that friendships are at the crux of most women's lives. And that was primarily probably the relationship I was exploring in that book. And then in this one, also, between sisters. And I think that was definitely something that, especially after my whole rewrite started, this is a story of women, about women, for women, and kind of unrelated to what you're saying, but a little bit related in my head, is the fact that, like, they're both married to nice guys for the first time. Like, I'm not writing, I didn't want this sort of all the air in the room to be sucked out by, like, the narcissist or the cheater or the cad again. Like, I've written a lot of them. And it's not a reflection of what I know or how I think men are at all. They served the stories then, but now I wanted, these women to be in supportive, loving, functional relationships with good guys, and let their problems be their own, and between each other, and see what happens then.
And you also see how few real true friendships I feel like Peyton has, because she's a star. And as a result, it's either people who want something from you or they want you to be doing something for them. It's sort of when you're in that role, it's why are you coming to me?
That transactional. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yes, very transactional. And they're constantly sitting there saying, okay, you want me to go to this thing, but what am I going to owe you later? Like, what is it going to be? And to just be said, like, her sister is her friend, because her sister's not asking any of that from her. Like, yeah, like, if you lend your name over here, it's going to be great. But sort of, your sister shows up in the room, it's going to be a little bit of awe, and it's not going to be as much fun for me. It's not going to be. So all my friends are going to be going, oh, look who's here, And I like when she tries to be normal like everyone else. I like when Peyton sits there and goes like, oh, I'll just come to the meeting. I'll be quiet. I'll just sit there.
Yeah, I'll wear my sweatpants. It'll be fine. Yeah.
And she doesn't realize that her just being in the room is going to change the whole vibe. She's completely beyond her at that point. It's
totally.
Yeah. So the books, I feel like they're total escape. Do you work to make them like that? Is that your goal going in, or does it evolve as time goes on?
No, that's definitely a goal going in. That's a consideration. And, it was more challenging this time, certainly because of lockdown, writing like a compelling, page-turning beach read during this, like, horrible, cold, dark, awful period that we've all been through was challenging. So it was definitely different this time. I would say that the writing process was definitely different. It was hard to even, like, envision that there was going to be an end, like a possibility of someone taking a book to a beach or a pool, or, another, like, sunshiny day in the future where people would read books for pleasure, be able to concentrate on anything other than the news. I couldn't really conceive of it, but I kind of just, wrote for this uncertain future. And nobody's saying we're out of the woods yet, but it certainly feels like things are on the up and up.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I actually thought I called it wrong. I thought it would take till September that we would be where we are now. I really thought it'd be much later. I thought that fall things would start to be emerging, but I thought it was going to be still a lot more lockdown than it is now. And it's refreshing as a result. I think people are loving being out and about, and parents of young children are very happy to not be schooling anymore, because I would have so flunked. My children would have had recess and lunch. I mean, I couldn't do math. I couldn't do science. I think that there is a book to be written from a parent's point of view, a collection of stories of what happened during homeschooling. Right. And I think that someday, looking back on it, it will be like one of those great reads, because
I agree with you. It's just too soon now. It's too close. We're too traumatized from that.
One of my friends did the 4 hours of kindergarten. One was sitting here. The other one was under the desk. The other one was napping on the couch. And like, where the 4 hours went. And I was like, you never could sit there and I can't sit and look at a screen for 4 hours. I couldn't sit there and do that.
We're asking these, like, babies to do it. I know.
I have a friend who's a kindergarten teacher, and she said one kid would go to say, I have a dog. I have a new dog. And then everybody else would go get their pet. She goes, there's 20 minutes. And they come back, and then you'd have two crying because they didn't have a pet. So she says, by the time you were done, it was, okay, now it's 11 o'clock. Let's have snack.
Exactly. It's just like, yes.
We'll just make it up as we go. And I bet everybody's going to be just okay.
That's exactly right.
Now, would you write with a word count every day or a time count? Are you a clock person or the word person?
I'm a word person. I'm a word person. I feel like that keeps me more honest, because if I were a time person, I could sit and stare at a blank screen for 4 hours a day, no problem, not write a word and walk away, no problem. So
Fun.
yeah, I'd be very comfortable with that. But the word count helps keeps me honest. And if you focus and you're on it, you can kind of get it done a lot sooner than if you're surfing online shopping sites and texting your friends and social media. So I try to be disciplined about it.
Social media is such a time suck distraction. It truly is.
It truly is. And I know I am like, I'm not a tremendous participant, but I am a tremendous voyeur. And I read and watch and follow all the things. And to what end?
I know more things about people I went to high school with, and it's not that I didn't like these people. It's not any of that. But at this point in my life, do I really need to know everything about everybody? And
No.
it's sort of like you'd send a Christmas card and you probably edit the list down. Now you're with everybody. Now it's like everybody's in your life.
Everybody. And their friends and children and parents. And I mean, like, the people that I know things about that I've never met, it's a bizarre thing.
But it infuses writing. It infuses your writing, it infuses your books, because you realize that the worldview is completely different than what it used to be before, because you didn't have to worry what everybody was saying about you if you're Peyton. You didn't have to worry if you were trying to fundraise and things, people were saying things behind your back if you're her sister. Like, you don't have to do those things.
Right.
Now you have to be concerned with what everybody thinks about you.
Right.
Like, what is going on? What's happening?
Right.
I don't know really where we're headed. When I sit there and look at it, sometimes I'm like, what are we doing? Could the word count be?
Wild. It is. It's wild. I know. And when I think about like the kids, what it's like to be like a teenager, it's hard for me to manage all of it, but like, what must it be like for these teenagers to do it?
And you were thinking about that with Max, because Max is seeing what other people are doing, and she's got her own, she wants to be in film. She knows what she wants to do. She's putting her own stories together. She's putting together what she's doing. But other kids are like, they're wearing the right clothes, they're doing this and that, and that's not her. That's not what she wants to be.
That's exactly right.
It's what spells success. And I think that's the hardest thing about social media is, especially for younger kids, is what's the success? Where's the success ratio? And for her, it's her mother is a success. Like, and then success is what?
Right. I know. And, I think that's part of it also, with like the sort of defining like this race to get into these certain types of colleges, and what people are willing to do and the lines they're willing to cross, or at least push up against, to get into one of these schools. Why? Because it's like a shortcut to success. It's like, this narrow definition we have of whatever that means. I don't know. You're going to get a job in banking or get into Yale Law School. I don't know what like the end result is, but whatever it is, everyone wants it. And, I think it's interesting to kind of see like what these parents are willing to go to, what lengths they're willing to go to.
And I think it's also about who you're going to be with later. Who's your network of friends going to be later on, based on where you're going to go to school and what's going to happen with you from there. And are you trying to set up the rest of your life? And instead of, when I went to college, you just went to college. You just went to college. You had a great 4 years, and then you went out and did the rest of your life.
Right.
And what you did afterwards was more important than what you were doing getting in there and staying there. It was,
just different.
Very, very different. It was very, very different. So was this always the title?
This was always the title. I mean, we considered loads of different titles, but this was always the one. Once we kind of had it and talked about it, this was like the pick that the group went with.
And it's from the Guns N' Roses song.
Of course.
There you go.
Yes.
You go. So it's like pop culture plus.
Yes, like pulled right from them. Yes, I just stolen directly from the album. Yes,
exactly. It's like pulled completely from there.
Yes.
So was the cover always like this, or where did we go with the cover? Was it always?
You know, the cover, was it always? I mean, we went through probably like 100 different iterations of jackets. I mean, when you're first starting out, when you know, just trying to like conceive of what a jacket might look like, there are loads of different looks. I mean, so many different ways of approaching it. And you kind of like whittle them down. Do we like this? Does this feel right? Does this look right? What are we thinking? Is this, you know, you think about everything from like an artistic, creative standpoint. Is it eye-catching on a bookshelf? Is it, can you read it on like you know, an e-reader? You know, can you see what the words are? But also like, you know, what do you connect with it? You know, I mean, even just like the detail of the handcuffed earring, you know, definitely gives like a hint as to what we might be dealing with in there without kind of coming right out and saying it. So this one I just love. I love the colors. I feel like it's so eye-catching.
And I feel like she had the perfect haircut. You can even see from here. It's the perfect haircut. It's the perfect whatever. Perfectly, you know, the jacket's the perfect jacket. It's got the perfect cut on it or whatever. Even what you're seeing. Yes.
Yes.
We all know the fashion is what really matters, you know?
Of course. Yes.
So now, did you have any hand in picking the narrator for the book?
You mean for the
audiobook?
The audiobook. I did. Yeah. Which was really fun. I got to hear some samples, some sample recordings of reading the actual book. And yeah, I just connected with her right away. I just sort of loved like the tone and the feel. And yeah.
Yeah, Teresa's got this great voice. And when she does a book, you're completely engaged. You feel like a story. I feel like, read me a story, keep on reading, keep on going. So get up something in that. So do you listen to audiobooks on a regular basis? Is that something you do?
I don't. I never really have. I also don't listen to podcasts. I can't focus from a listening standpoint. It's been that way my whole life. It's not like a new social media problem. I am not like an auditory learner. I tune out like instantly. I'm so distracted by everything that's going on around me. And I'm the person who every minute is like, 10 pages went by and I was thinking about something else or watching something else. So I can't do that. Even sitting stationary in a car, you know, my husband and I will put books on tape on long trips and try to listen, and I can't focus. I'm definitely more of a reader.
Yeah, I can do it when I'm in the car. When I used to commute into the city, I could do it. But then it was really funny. At the beginning of the pandemic, we were listening to something and then we closed the office and we went in like months later, we went into the city and my son goes, he works with me. He says, book is still going on. Like they're
still at it.
He goes, they didn't get out. He goes, you have not driven the car that much in between that we're still
pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on right here.
They're not going to get out of those places. I said, no. We will fill up the car once a month if we have to.
That's right. If that, yeah.
That would be a lot. That would mean we went to the food store. Like we didn't do that. We didn't leave.
That's true.
So now it's crazy that we talked about at the beginning, Devil Wears Prada came out in 2003, 15th anniversary of the film. I watched a really fun, we'll put it in the show notes, an interview about it on ewcut.com, which was really fun, where everybody goes back and talks about what it was like creating the show. And I think those moments are really great because we watch a movie or we watch a show. We have no idea how it came together, like who you had first. And that was fun.
Yeah. That was such a highlight of everything. Looking back, I mean, you know, one of those crazy once in a lifetime situations. And so they just did such an amazing job. I mean, you look back on like that cast and crew and it's unstoppable. I mean, of course they made a brilliant movie that stands the test of time. Like, look at the talent that was involved with that project. It was amazing.
Well, it's even when they're talking about Meryl Streep's haircut and they said, it's going to be like, you'll see it. You'll see what it is. And she walks out and it's like, well, of course that was what it was. Of course.
Right.
Of course it's perfect.
Yes.
Now a Broadway show is coming with Kevin McCollum and musician Elton John adapting this. Now tell me what that's like in your life.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I can't even believe it. I mean, it's nuts. Yes. Sir Elton has written all of the music already, and it's incredible. And I can't believe it's been really just such a privilege to see them making this. It's totally different than the making of a movie, which probably sounds obvious to people, but it's not something that I really knew or understood. It's a completely different process, and it's fascinating to watch and to be a small part of, and to see how they're going. And fingers crossed, it's really happening.
Really
So
happening.
it's so exciting.
And I think it's so much fun because, okay, so you've written a book that was made into a film, that you got to see that whole process of how it happens, what you keep, what you can't keep. You can't have every single thing, but you're telling a story. And now a completely different way of doing it. So you've taken this one story into 3 different art forms, and
It's amazing. I know, it's really neat. I feel so lucky that happened. And it's true, because they're each so different. And
Mhm.
they require like a completely different process,
Mhm.
how to tell this story in 350 pages in a novel versus a 100-page screenplay versus like a book, with lyrics and music, is incredible.
On a
It's
stage
wild.
that
On a
will have,
stage, right? With people singing. I mean, it's incredible.
and it will have set changes, but it's not going to be, okay, we're in Paris, we'll show Paris a different way. We'll show everything that's going on in the place a different way.
It's
I think it's been
remarkable.
fascinating. And I think that when you have the privilege of doing that, you also think about your work in a different way, I feel, because you've seen, okay, everybody says they want to get their book made into a film. And a lot of times it's just not going to work. Like, it's just not, there's not enough there, or
Right.
it has to change so drastically that it's not going to look like it. I mean, I have a couple of friends that have had things adapted and you only know by name. Nothing else looks the same.
Right. Right. Right.
And even Jean Hans Korolitz was really funny about The Undoing. The night of the finale of The Undoing, she said, I'm watching to see who the killer is because I don't know. And she told me recently she guessed wrong.
Right. It's amazing.
And it was her book that it was
Yep.
based on.
Yep. Yep.
It's just
Loosely inspired by. Yeah.
inspired by. Listen, and as you watch, you go, very loosely inspired by.
Right.
Totally
That's so funny.
same. And I think it's kind of fun because you sit there and say, well, how can, I think your writing can change as a result too, because you sit there and say, how can you do in short phrasing? How can you
Right.
do this and not muck it all up and take so long to get into and out of things?
Right.
So,
Right. Right. I think that's right.
well, as it's been such a pleasure finally getting to meet you, and the woman who
This
gave
was
me
really fun.
fabulous beach reads that I've always enjoyed. I mean, I plaster myself in the chair. It's like, okay, don't disturb me. I'm out. I'm going to enjoy this book.
I
And
love it.
like,
I
it's like
love it.
a
I'm so
couple of
happy to hear that. To
Yeah.
hear that people are parked in a beach chair somewhere enjoying my book makes me absolutely thrilled. So thank
And
you
it's
for
like
that.
that couple of sit beach read because I'm not moving. Okay, you want dinner tonight? Figure it out. It's going to be
Figure it
perfect.
out. Yeah.
Figure it
I'll
out.
be right
I'm
here.
going to be in charge of it. So such a pleasure. You're
I
working on
love it.
something now, I hope.
I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, for next summer or
Not for next summer, no, but hopefully soon. And it's kind of along the same, a similar theme.
okay.
I won't give too much away.
So next summer I'm on my own, but the following summer I'm holding you to it.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us, Lauren. I so
Thank you,
appreciate
Carol.
it.
This was terrific.
And to our readers, look forward to seeing you next time on Book Reporter Talks To.